Hello creatives, my name is Zachary Carranco, fashion designer and entrepreneur. Welcome to the House of TZC, where we're building better fashion businesses together. Let's get into it. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the first questions you may ask yourself if you're an aspiring fashion designer or creative entrepreneur looking to make their mark in the field of fashion, and that is fashion school still necessary in 2021 and beyond? At the end of this video, I'm going to give you some advice on how to avoid that elitist BS that everyone faces when applying to fashion school. So buckle up, nerds, school's in session. Before we get too far into this video, I want to do a little disclaimer, and that is I do not represent any of the schools mentioned in this video, and that everything that I talk about is just on my opinion and my opinion alone. And if you were planning on going to any of these fashion schools or universities, make sure you talk to your guidance counselor first to make sure that you are on the right path for you. I also want to mention that I did go to Metropolitan State University of Denver to get my Bachelor of Arts in Individualized Studies in Brand Strategy and Applied Innovation. That one's a mouthful. I also went to Parsons School of Design, the new school in New York City, to get my Associates of Applied Science in Fashion Design. Okay, back to it. As we get into this content, first let's talk about fashion internships, because that's usually the first thing that you need right out of school to gain some sort of experience or to get a job in the fashion industry. Currently, fashion internships do require a degree because, importance alert, education does not equal experience in the industry. However, fashion jobs do require some sort of experience through internships, especially those higher tiered fashion jobs that you probably are dreaming about being a part of. They want to see that you not only have fashion education under your belt, but you also have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 internships. I know, that's a lot. But when you're asking yourself that first question of, is fashion school necessary? What you need to be asking yourself is fashion school necessary to get this internship for experience? And is that experience going to get me into that final job? I know, spider web of different routes there, but it is what it is. When weighing that question on fashion internships specifically, the good thing about going to school is that fashion internships often require a degree, and usually a bachelor's degree. The good thing is, if you go to school, you also have the resources you need to get those fashion internships. And many schools have programs where you can leave your university with an internship or job in fashion, especially those higher tier schools that we're going to talk about later in this video. This video isn't about fashion internships, but if you are an individual who is thinking about going to school to get an internship or just going out there and applying to fashion internships, please do me a favor and know your worth. Fashion internships, especially after the craziness of 2020, RIP 2020, and I've seen this firsthand with a lot of my friends and myself included, as we applied to fashion internships and trying to get those jobs out in the industry, we came across so many that were looking to use us and abuse us. They would not pay us. They would make us do way more work than they're expected because every fashion company had to downsize their employees, and now they're bringing on fashion interns in order to make up for the loss. But then the second that internship should turn into a job, they let you go and hire somebody else because guess what? We all have the same education. We can all do the same things that they're looking for. Make sure the fashion internship is good for you. And also, if you want to see a whole video on fashion internships specifically, what they look like, what kinds of things to expect in a fashion internship, or how to apply to them, then write that down in the comment section below, because if our community wants to know more about fashion internships specifically, I can give you a whole video just on that. Now, moving up from fashion internships, is fashion jobs. And I want to play a little game with you. I want to play a game. This game is going to be interactive, so I want you to play along, and I want you to write your answers down in the comment section below, or just yell it at your screen, but you're gonna have to yell really loud if you want me to hear you. And if you get it wrong, you're gonna die in 7 days. Not me mixing horror references. For this game, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flash a position in the fashion industry up on the screen. I'm going to give you a few seconds, and I want you to tell me whether or not you need a degree to get into the industry for that specific fashion job. Here we go. All right, ready? First job. Creative director. Go! Tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. Ding, 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 ding. You got it. You do need a degree in order to be a creative director in the fashion industry. This job usually requires a lot of specified knowledge in brand strategy, communication design, and how to take an inspiration, turn that into fashion ideas, and then market it to a specific group of people. This is essentially like the manager, the boss of an entire brand, because they're the ones who see the initial inspiration and turn that into finalized products and how to get those products in the hands of the clients. This usually requires a degree in fashion merchandising, fashion design, fashion marketing, advertising, fashion business, or just a general degree in business strategy, branding, entrepreneurship. Okay, number 2, fashion photographer, and go. I don't actually know how long to wait and how long it's gonna take you to guess these questions, cause this game does not yet exist on my side of the camera. No degree. There are many different types of fashion photographers in the industry, whether you're going into journalism, whether you're going to be an editorial fashion photographer, or you're doing lookbooks, or you're doing videography, and all of those different photographers require different skills, and usually a good photographer can do many of those things, but in order to get that job, you don't necessarily need a degree. In fact, many of the fashion photographers that I have seen or I have worked with don't have degrees, but they have a good portfolio of fashion photography that they can show off to people, and they go out to the industry, find those brands, and show their work and say, hey, I want to take photos for you. So no, you don't need a degree, but if you want to get a job at one of those high-end places that are looking for a fashion photographer, they might expect a degree, just saying. Let's do fashion forecaster. Go! In case you're curious what a fashion forecaster is, it's somebody who predicts trends, not only the clothing that consumers are wanting to buy for the season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons away. They're also looking at industry and business trends, how a business is going to fluctuate over time, how the industry is going to fluctuate over time, what are going to be the wants and needs of the industry for 10 years from now. Ding, ding, ding. You got it. They do, in fact, need a degree, and I'm sure you could guess just based on that little bit of knowledge about them. Fashion forecasters need very, very specific information, knowledge, know-how. Fashion forecasters have degrees, and usually multiple degrees, in different things across the industry, whether that's textile merchandising or business strategy, branding, fashion marketing, fashion design, fashion retail, retail marketing, fashion management, fashion business. The list goes on and on and on. Anybody can do this job, but you need lots of experience and a lot of know-how before you can get paid to do this job. Okay, ready? Personal shopper, go! I might put in some elevator music. No degree. So personal shopper is somebody who spends their days using other people's money to go shopping. Doesn't that sound like the perfect job? Maybe I should switch my career path. We're gonna do one more. Let's do sustainable farmer, and go. Most people forget about this job. They forget that farmers are a huge part of the fashion industry, but hello, you would not have wool, silk, alpaca, linen, cotton without farming. Just saying. Yes, you do need a degree to be a sustainable farmer in the industry. That is because many times if you want to be a sustainable farmer and you don't already have a farm yourself, or if you had a farm but your farm was not sustainable before, you need to go to school to learn all that specified knowledge on how to make a farm sustainable and eco-friendly. This is a really interesting subject that is very, very important for building better fashion businesses for tomorrow. Our mission statement here at House of TZC. Here's the next thing I'm going to do. I'm going to put up a list of all of the ones we talked about plus a few others. And this whole list is incorrect. The truth is that art is subjective, and any job that you're looking for, you can do in the fashion industry without a degree. If you're able to go into an interview and you can show talent, experience, and know-how without ever having had a degree, then you beat everybody, and you also saved yourself tens of thousands of dollars in going to school. But yeah, art is subjective, so you can get into any of these jobs without a degree, especially if you were starting your own business and you want to be a creative director and fashion designer of your own business. You don't need a degree to do so, but we already know, just because you don't go to school doesn't mean you don't have a lot to learn. Before I move on to the next step, I want to say that we're going to be talking about fashion jobs in the industry for a lot of videos. If you are curious about more jobs specifically, we are going to be talking about that later on, just to throw that out there. Back to asking ourselves if fashion school is necessary in 2021. What we need to talk about is a resume and a portfolio, because these things are not easily gained through not going to school. And that is because fashion portfolios are going to show process and your ability to take that initial inspiration and turn it into a final product. That isn't something that you do outside of fashion school. Because if you don't go to school, did you learn how to use Adobe software that is currently required in the industry? Did you learn how to sew a garment? Did you learn how to make a mood board or a color board? Did you know how to make a fabric story? Do you know how to shop for textiles? Do you know how to talk to manufacturers? Do you know how to source all of your things and then make a final product based on that first inspiration? If you don't, then you need to go to fashion school. When you go and show your portfolio at a fashion job or a fashion internship, they want to see that entire process from start to finish, including tech packs, fabric knowledge, if you can sketch or if you can come up with graphic ideas or prints, or if you know anything about designing certain elements and how those design elements speak to each other in order to represent your initial inspiration. This is what we in the industry call design communication. The other thing that you get by going to school is an interesting why. Because you don't know what you don't know. You can't go into the industry and say,
I want to be a fashion designer and be my own boss one day.
Well, yeah, so does every other fashion designer out there. So what's a really interesting why as to why you want to be in the fashion industry? And a lot of those reasons as to why you learn in fashion school, because you get slapped in the face with all of the problems out there and how you specifically can use your aesthetic, your design skills, your abilities, and solve a specific problem. And that's what every boss wants to hear, how your why fits into their why. And I know I keep saying subscribe, but that's because this is only my second video. Next week, we're gonna be talking about how to stand out to those fashion jobs, fashion internships, and more importantly, how to stand out and show your voice when applying to those major fashion schools that we're going to be talking about at the end of this video. So please hit subscribe. Now we've talked about fashion internships. Do we need a degree? Yes and no. Fashion jobs. Do we need a degree? Yes and no. Portfolios and resumes. Maybe yes, but also no. I'm just gonna give you a list here, a T diagram of all the things that I find the best things about going to fashion school and the best things about not going to fashion school. So here's this list. Now we're gonna fill this out. So number one, in my opinion, the most important thing you get from going to fashion school, you get a global community of fashion designers, creative entrepreneurs, artists from literally every continent. And they all come together under one place to learn. You get to create relationships with them, which you don't get that global community in your small hometown of a bunch of people that look like and have the same opinions as you. And the coolest thing about this channel is that I'm going to make it a point to share my network with you, show you all of these different designers from all around the world. We're going to be creating collections together, showing how each of us design, showing how to collaborate between aspiring designers. A lot of big, exciting stuff on the horizon, but we're not there yet. The next thing, and I kind of mentioned this already, but is practice. You get to practice designing. You get to practice designing, creating collections, sewing, constructing, finding inspiration, sourcing materials, talking to manufacturers or producers. You get experience doing all of that stuff that you don't get not in school. Those projects that you have in school push you to be creative and find your aesthetic in ways that you weren't originally planning on designing for. The next one is, again, it's invaluable information, but it's critiques. I'm sure many of you designers out there and many of you creative people are out there have been creating work for some time. And if you ask people, oh, what do you think of this? Or how does this look? You're speaking to an endless pit of people that you already know, people that you have really close relationships with, whether it's family or not, who just want to encourage you to be the best you, or give you that nonchalant, oh, that's great, and move on. Well, in school, you're around a bunch of like-minded people who are really, really good at critiquing your work based on how well did you reach a prompt, number one, and how aesthetically pleasing is what you're producing to everybody in the room who's all interested in the same things you're interested in. And you also have a teacher there who has many years of experience specifically sitting with you and saying, this is what's good about it, this is what is not so good about it, this is how you can make it better. And that having those critiques is, again, all of this stuff is the most invaluable stuff. I say invaluable, but they do have an actual price tag, and it's a hefty one. Beyond getting critiqued yourself, you also have the ability to critique others. And the ability to critique others is almost more important because by seeing exactly what others designers are doing, how they're doing it, how they're getting to their final result, and critiquing them shows your knowledge and your increase of information because you're able to see, well, this could be done to better communicate the ideas that they originally had. And it's really helpful, like truly really helpful to see how a designer works from start to finish and the kind of processes they take because that only increases your ability as a designer. Now, this last one is not good, and it's what I mentioned a little bit, but it is debt on debt on debt. I went to fashion school after I got a business degree because I felt like in order to be a creative director, I needed both the business knowledge and the fashion knowledge, and I put myself in dollars of debt. And I'm probably gonna bleep that out because I don't wanna scare you. You're welcome. You're gonna be paying bills the rest of your life, so. The second side, which the first one, school debt. By not going to school, you do not leave after 2, 4, 6 years with that much debt. No debt. You leave with no debt. You leave with no school debt. And hello, that's a huge head start to all of those people who thought, oh, well, I'm gonna go to school, even though that schooling does not count as experience, ... Another thing you don't get is the mental and physical stress of having to go to school. When I say that my last semester of school, I graduated during COVID. I graduated in December of 2020 with my second degree from Parsons. I'm not kidding when I say there was a 4-day period where I did not sleep one little bit. In order to accomplish that last photo shoot, I had to make 3 garments and I really only ended up making 2 because I worked from like 6 a.m. one day all the way until that final photo shoot. On that 4th day of no sleep, I actually started crying. Like my mind was fried. The mental and physical stress of how many all-nighters you have to do, having to work and create all of these projects and garments and everything else. And you know, school is as much as you put into it. So, and I told myself going in that I wanted to be one of the best. Who knows what that means, but like I wanted to do my best that I absolutely could. I wanted to graduate top of my class, which means that I needed to not only get straight A's, but I needed to produce work that excited and inspired all of the other individuals in my class, which in my personal heart of hearts, I believe that I did. But that process is mentally and physically draining. No social life, terrible work-life balance, stuff that you don't have to face if you don't go to school. The third one on this side is unconstrained and non-specified creative exercise. The creative exercises that you did before, you were practicing things, building on your own knowledge, growing your practice. You now have teachers influencing how you create. So essentially, that is forming you into a mold that you are now having to fit your creative ideas into while you're getting all of this practice. You're getting constrained practice that teaches you specifically how to think through a specific process to give you a specific end result. And you don't have to face that without going to school. And the last one on this side is going to be a negative for not going to school, but it's professional experience. Like we pointed out earlier in this video, most internships and most jobs are going to require some sort of fashion education. Without seeing one of those fashion colleges on your resume, they don't think that you gained the proper knowledge that you needed to in order to work there. It doesn't equal actual work experience, it just equals professional experience. Okay, now we're getting into the fashion schools because it's time to give you that information that I've been talking about all video, and that is the elitist BS that you may face if you choose to go to fashion school. Because at this point, you have now kind of gathered the idea on whether or not school is necessary for you. We've talked to our guidance counselor if we've needed to. At this point in our modern world, school is maybe necessary for some and maybe not necessary for others, depending on what our passions, our ambitions, and our goals are. And if we do choose to go to school, here's my first bit of advice. Don't chase passions in college. Chase the lack of knowledge. I expressed this before. I knew that I wanted to be a fashion designer, but I also knew that I was going to work on fashion regardless if I went to school for it. That's why I built the education path that I did. My first degree was an individualized degree, which means it was not a degree that existed, but I got approved through the schooling system because I was able to prove that that knowledge was necessary to do what I wanted to do later on in life. And that was be a creative director for a global fashion brand. I took classes on business strategy, entrepreneurship, branding, marketing, communication design, how to design, studio art, costume design, and construction, because that got me building clothing. I knew I wanted to be a fashion designer. And every single project that I did in school, I applied some sort of fashion element to that project. That is also why I chose to go to fashion school second, because there's a lot of information that I feel if I want to be a creative director, I need to know information about fashion. On top of now the business knowledge and the creative design and everything else knowledge that I've already gained from my first schooling, I had to then go to fashion school. And of course, I wanted to compete on that global level, so I needed to go to one of the best fashion schools in the world. This process that I'm about to show you is the process that I use to apply to schooling and to find the best fashion school in the world for me. Don't be afraid to use the information that I'm about to give you to push yourself creatively and find adventure. This process involves scouring the internet, finding every source, from those really important sources all the way down to those blogs that are minuscule, taking their top 10 list of schools from around the globe and then averaging them out. The resources that I found rated schools based on a few different things: the philosophy on what the school teaches, the actual program and what they teach you in school, the alumni that come from the school, the longevity of the school and how much power and influence they currently have, the teachers that are teaching at the school, and the students who leave the school and their opinions of what that school or education program was like. I took their top 10 list. Sometimes they had more than 10 being the school that rated the highest, 1 being the school that rated the lowest, added their positions up, and then I averaged them out, which gave me the top school based on all of the sources I could find for that specific year. And I did that for the last 5 years, because what school you go to matters in the industry. If you're competing at a very high global level, they want to see that you went to the best school and got the best education you can, and you're going to bring the best knowledge to this specific job. I did that for you, and I'm going to cheat on my notes over here. Here we go. So here are the last 5 years of education and the top schools. We're going to talk about each of them a little bit more specifically because they're really tiny on this screen. As you can see here, it has the year that it's listed, the name of the school, and where the school is located in the world. Let's start with 5 years ago, 2017. Here you can see, the top schools versus the bottom schools. And I do want to make a major note here: the bottom schools are not the worst schools to go to. All of these schools in the top 10 are the top 10 best schools in the entire world. You can see here that the best school to go to may not be in the United States, which is why earlier I said don't be afraid to make this an adventure, because if you have to travel across the globe to go to fashion school, it's worth it. It's going to push you and make you a better artist, creative entrepreneur, and fashion designer. Again, we're seeing that those same schools are, listed here, and there are some new schools that make the list every once in a while. And that shows you that there are many other schools out there that are competing for these top 10 spots, and that these top 10 spots aren't necessarily set in stone. So don't base your entire path based on this. Remember, you're finding the best path that fits you and your specific studies. Not every school that you may want to go to is going to offer the same thing. And this is just fashion schools in general. So not all of these are fashion design programs. Some of them may be costume programs. Some of them may be fashion management, fashion business, fashion retail, fashion photography. Some of them may be more specific fashion design or technical design, maybe not both. Each fashion school is going to have their merits in what they offer. Each one of them is going to have a different philosophy in what they think and how they should educate people. These here are the ones for this year, 2021. So now we're using this list to apply for schools for 2021 and beyond. Over the last 5 years, these are the schools and how they ranked. Here is the list for overall. I did the exact same thing for the 5 years, and I averaged them out to find their placement. You can see that the London College of Fashion and Central St. Martin's are ranked top 2, followed by Parsons, followed by FIT. Going to any of the top 4 schools or any of these top 10 schools, you're going to get a fantastic education that is going to show that you are a designer that is able to compete on a global scale. We're going to touch again on this a little bit next week, but for now, what I want to say is the 3 biggest mistakes you can avoid if you're applying to fashion school. Number 1, chasing passions instead of knowledge. Number 2 is not enough research. The list that I just gave you are a good starting point. Now go research those schools, research their programs, research their instructors, research their cost of education, research the type of lifestyle that exists around those schools. And finally, the most important thing is not having a good financial plan. Finance is such an important part of going to higher university because of how much it costs and how much debt it can put you in. You need to make sure that you're prepared to have a financial plan afterwards. At the end of this video, I do think it's necessary to go to school. My recommendation to you is to stop thinking about getting a singular degree if you are thinking about going to school. Get a liberal arts degree, a degree that has multiple different areas of information and knowledge, or think about getting multiple degrees in order to expand your knowledge. What you come to the table with is going to set you up for success in school and beyond. And most companies nowadays are looking for an individual who can do more than just fashion design. Because COVID changed the landscape so drastically, they're looking for a fashion designer who can do fashion design, but can also do marketing and business administration. Everything matters, and the information you have matters so much to the company that you may work for one day or the company that you create one day. But you have to make sure that going to school is right for you, your financial future, and the path that you want to do to reach your passions, your ambitions, and your goals. Now, if you think you got enough out of this video, or if you liked that little list that I gave you, I ask you to please press the like button down below or comment and tell me what you think about those top fashion schools, and if you think there are other fashion schools that should be added to that list. Also, like I said many times throughout this video, please subscribe down below because that really helps out this channel and keeps us building better fashion businesses together. Thank you so much for your time. Sweet dreams, creatives.